Good morning, everybody. As Chief said, I'm Officer Beer, the Community Resource Officer. Some of you I've met, some of you I've yet to meet, but I'm happy to be here and looking forward to working with everyone here for as long as Emerald will have me, I guess. So starting off with this, we're going to talk motor vehicle crashes and passing stop school buses. I find that the two very often go hand in hand because one of the leading causes of both these things is inattention, right? And I remember, all of us probably remember there was a commercial back in the 80s that said we added one thing to a car that made them absolutely deadly, and that was alcohol, right? Well, alcohol is still a problem, but I found that this little device here is probably just as bad, if not worse, than what we're dealing with alcohol out here. So with that, motor vehicle collisions. So for those of you who met me on the last PEP, I was nothing short of giving the chief a coronary because I was running very late to this. And the reason why I was running late there is the picture you see here. This was taken on the day of the last PEP, August 15th, I believe. And it was at about 9 o'clock in the morning. The young lady, a 19-year-old young lady, was driving that vehicle. I was coming on the other side of the Queens Creek Road Bridge there in Hubert. And I saw her go right in there, didn't hit the brakes, no slowing down, just straight into the embankment. And if you're familiar with that bridge, you see the tree to the right of the vehicle as it's facing us, stopped that vehicle from going into the water. I was in the community resource officer Jeep and I was in uniform, so I figured I had to stop. So I stopped, I got out, I helped the girl out of there, called 911, and then when the rescue squad showed up to take care of her, that's when I cleared myself and then continued on and then met some of you that I met that day out there. But legitimate excuse for running a little late, I thought, out there in the lake. So that was the picture of it. Surprisingly enough, with all that damage, and she hit that thing going about 45 miles per hour, walked away with barely a scratch. All the airbags deployed, there are side curtain wall airbags out there. They all deployed. She extricated herself from the vehicle and then sat down, which I was worried about spinal injury. Sometimes that adrenaline would get you out there, but she was standing there, and then you can see the adrenaline dump leave her because she started to fall asleep about 20 minutes afterwards when the adrenaline came down. But very upset. She was supposed to take the car to Texas for college. I don't think the car made it to college. So frequently asked questions. What do I do now? Is it my fault? And then what do we see here in Emerald Isle? Okay. So right off the bat, if you're involved in a motor vehicle collision, you need to stop. If you don't stop, it's a hit and run. That includes in parking lots. So two of my very first cases as a part-time police officer in Emerald Isle were hit and runs involved with somebody hitting a parked car in a parking lot and not making contact with the owner, not doing anything, and leaving the scene. In both cases, or in one case, we got it on security camera footage of the person leaving the vehicle, and that's how we were able to identify him. The second one, a town employee was walking out of the food line, saw the whole thing happen, and wrote down the license plate on it, and I called Pender County where it was there, and then we tracked the person down that way and got the situation rectified. But you're required, even in the parking lot, even if it's just a bump and we'll buff out, you're probably a good plan to make communication with the owner of that vehicle so that you're not leaving the scene of an accident or leaving the scene of a crash and getting charged for that, because it is a chargeable offense. So you're in a motor vehicle collision, what do you do? Well, first thing is, make sure everybody's all right. If everybody's all right, then you can go from there. If the vehicles are operable, you want to move them off to the side of the road. As we all seen, Emerald Isle has one road in and one road out. And when we have that fender bender on Emerald Drive, right there, usually around a traffic circle someplace, because the rest of the world knows how to use a traffic circle. We haven't figured it out yet. Pause for a laugh. It really slows down traffic getting on there. And the way it is and the way it goes and the way it looks, and you see when coming over the bridge, the speed limit on the bridge is 45 miles per hour, and Lord knows people are in a rush to get to the beach, so they're not going 45, they're probably going a bit faster. They get to the crest of the bridge, don't see anything, and then they get down the other side, and oh my God, there's cars, and they don't stop fast enough, and then we have more vehicle collisions. Hopefully it happens on the bridge. That's state police have to take down the bridge, right? Less paperwork for us. But you assess the vehicle damage. The reason why we assess the vehicle damage. If the combined damage on the vehicles is $1,000 or more, it's required to have a report. That's both vehicles have a total of $1,000. If it's less than that, then there's no report required. What I will tell you is a good rule of thumb is go ahead and call us anyways. I'm sure the patrol officers are going to hate me for saying this, but I'll take it. Go ahead and call us anyways, because we all know now the way new cars are that you can't just fix a scratch in a bumper. You have to replace the whole bumper, and before you know it, what would have been a $200 repair 10 years ago is now a $2,000 repair, just based off of how the cost of everything's going, inflation, and parts coming in from China are being late to get here. So always on the safe side, might as well just give us a call. We'll come out there, take assessment what it is, help facilitate whatever needs to be facilitated, and chances are it's probably going to require a report. It got so bad with people not doing the reports and then having to come back to their insurance company where the reports were when I was working up at Havelock, that it was a strict rule set out by the patrol lieutenant was you will do a collision report for every collision out there. Because the amount of people like, oh, this doesn't look like it's so much, and then they go get the estimate done. Oh my God, it's over $1,000. The insurance company needs a police report for it. So save yourself the heartache, and whoever you're talking to, tell them to save themselves the heartache, and go ahead and call, what's the worst that can happen. So when do you have to call? Again, if the report is required, that $1,000 assessment, or if there's a personal injury involved. I typically go to every crash. Every time I hear a crash come on the radio, they say no personal injury. I say, well, wait till I get there, and then all of a sudden their neck hurts or whatever happens to be. So almost every collision I've dealt with, at some point somebody decides that they are injured during the report. A few of the things that you are required to give is a driver's license, vehicle registration, proof of insurance when myself or another officer shows up there. Other information that we need as well is if there's passengers in the vehicle, their identification, or we don't need their identification, but we need to know who they are and where they were seated inside the vehicle during the crash. It's a real difficulty when a school bus is involved with a crash, especially when there's a lot of kids. We have to get the names of all the kids, then you have to get the names of all the parents, the contacts under the age of 18, and find out where they're all sitting on the bus, and hope that the kids were actually sitting in their assigned seat at the time when everything went down, instead of up hopping around and causing a distraction. So why does this happen? Why did it happen to me? Look at the first thing up there, inattention. I'm sure you've all driven around here enough and seen the rear end fender bender that we constantly have. Well, why do we have that? So my daughter recently, God bless her, got her driver's license. I didn't have all this gray hair. This was all a result of my daughter's driving. She's actually a very attentive driver now, and she's up in the school that she's not allowed to have a car. So I'm coming back down. My blood pressure's dropped a little bit, and the doctor noticed an improvement at my last checkup. I'm sorry. Inattention, distract driver. My daughter's a new driver. The whole nine. Where was I going with that? This is embarrassing. My bosses are right over there. Yeah. See, inattention. I forgot where I was going with this. Yeah, I'm distracted while I'm trying to teach a class. This is terrible. The kids are involved. They're in on their cell phones and they're moving too close. Oh yeah, the driver's ed course. That's where I was going with it. I knew I'd get right back into it. All right. So my daughter was taught that it's a 2-second rule for when you're following a vehicle, right? So 2 seconds. And people who have experience in the military and law enforcement realize 2 seconds is a long time, but it's not long enough. So you tell me that as you're following a vehicle and looking at a vehicle, you have 2 seconds. So you assess the danger, you realize it's a danger, you decide what to do, and then you take a course of action, and then you make a course of action happen. You're supposed to do that all in 2 seconds. And then it's 3 seconds if the weather is a little iffy, and if the weather's really bad, it's 4 seconds. Now, when I was a kid, our driver's ed course taught us a 4-second rule. And that was a better way to assess that you're supposed to give a car length for every 10 miles per hour that you're going from the car ahead of you. So I would turn around and I told my daughter, I said, look, you're never going to get in trouble with the driver's ed guy if you're too far behind the car in front of you. They're not going to complain about that. So I had them all taught to do the 4-second rule, because at least it gives you time to assess the situation, determine the course of action, and then take that course of action. And the evasive driving classes that I had to take and everything else, 2 seconds is not a whole lot of time, and there's been lots of cones run over in the secure course trying to follow the 2-second rule. So when I talk to people about it, I'd say, you really want a 4-second rule, but we follow, watch on the roads when you're driving there, we follow extremely too close. And then if you're paying attention when other people are driving out there, and my wife points this out to me when we're driving, yet another one's on their cell phone and they're right up on somebody else's rear end as they're driving out there. And like, those two things are where we have the biggest problems. And look at the top 3 bullets we have. Inattention, distracted driving, following too closely. If we had all that stuff figured out, we would eliminate most of our problems on the road, I would say. Failure to reduce speed. Everybody wants to get there in a hurry. I think there was a test that if you go 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, you're still going to show up at the same time that you would if you went the speed limit. I don't know how true that is, but now that I drive a marked vehicle and then people now know me, I've come around to driving the speed limit a bit better. I don't need to be caught in the work truck going breakneck speed down the road, and then somebody call in and say, hey, the Jeep is going too fast. That'd be bad. Doesn't brief well. Improper equipment. People don't really pay attention to the tires anymore. The amount of bald tires I see on there, the amount of bald tires I see on trucks going onto the beach. And I was like, well, how the hell do you go across the beach with bald tires? But apparently they make it happen. So I don't know. All right. And you have the rest of the stuff out there. And then failure to yield right away, that's our traffic circle every day. Right. And again, like I said earlier, the rest of the world does traffic circles everywhere, and we have yet to figure it out. And don't worry, it's not just an Emerald Isle problem. Every place I've been to in the U.S. that has a traffic circle, nobody knows how to work it. Norway, England, Ireland, Greece, all those other places, no problem. They all go through. I don't get it. So what do we have in Emerald Isle? Well, during the peak season, during the summer, when we have more people here, obviously we're going to have more collisions, right? More vehicles, more pedestrians, businesses are open longer, more turning, stopping, and starting. Everybody wants to go to the Bogue Inlet Pier because apparently they don't charge for parking. So that backs up traffic all the way to the other side of the bridge. And then they call in, and I stand out there with my yellow vest and tell them that the parking lot's closed. And then they yell at me, and I'm like, well, don't shoot the messenger. You gotta keep going. There's other parking lots in Emerald Isle. Just goes to show, right? And we have the one road in, one road out, increased vehicles. And then we have all the young people, new drivers, and it's not just because they're young, it's because they're new drivers, the lack of experience. As you get more experience with something, you get better at it. Well, when you have a 17-year-old kid that's been driving by themselves without supervision for, all of 6 months, and now they're going to the beach and they're meeting their friends and they're excited, and I don't like the song that's on the radio, and somebody just text me, well, what are we gonna have? Well, mom and dad's insurance is gonna go up a little bit. And as you can see, this is circa from those dates up there, our wrecks go up by the month, and then our peak season for wrecks are May, June, July, and August. So what do we got going on May, June, July, and August? Well, let's all go to the beach, with July being the biggest one. What do we have in July? 4th of July. So we're really packed, and when people really pack in, all those factors come into place, and we get that. 32.7% rear end collisions. What are we talking about? That's not paying attention, following too close, distracted driving. The car in front of you stops because they don't know what to do, and then the car behind them keeps going, and then they're forced to stop when they meet the back end of the other vehicle. With all that, there's more than one way to operate a vehicle in a crisis situation. Stop is not always the best answer. So one of the things I like to teach kids when I'm going with them, and I taught my daughter, is that you probably want to have an escape route, because sometimes the best thing to do is turn the car to get out of the way, because you may see what's going on, but the person behind you is following too close and not paying attention. I always like when I have to brake hard for some reason in the car, my wife looks at the rear view mirror, she starts to scream, oh God, oh God, oh God. And then the person luckily stops before hitting us. I'm like, see, nothing to worry about, baby, we got it. 18.9% of accidents during that time were from backing up. Now, when I went to BLET, they talked about that 50% of all vehicle collisions involving a police car was in the act of backing up, which I thought was interesting. But that's to say 50% of all the other accidents was something other than backing up. So we need to know how to go forward and backwards in a cop car. I recommend that everybody learns how to go forwards and backwards. Things come at a funny angle to you when you're going backwards. They're behind you. We're not used to looking behind. And now what we have with the mirrors, and we have the camera, and like people are now using their mirrors and using the camera and not taking the time to look over their shoulder and actually look around with them, and they kind of just gun it and go and hope for the best. And now we have 18.9%. And then more than half of the accidents or crashes that we have happen in the summertime. School buses, what we're all here for. As Chief talked about, school buses, a couple of years back, we had a Marine staff sergeant hit a kid and kill a kid on Sand Ridge Road by passing a school bus. He was late to work in the morning and the kid was coming around, hit the kid going about 55 miles per hour. The Jacksonville High School, I'm very familiar with that because my kids are in the Onslow County school system. So Jacksonville High School has a road, and it's something similar happened to that a couple of years back as well. So it's just people in a rush to go into work, and there's people not paying attention. Very self-centered society it seems like we have now, so they're thinking about themselves and where they got to be, not giving enough time to get there in time. Those of us in the military know that if you're 10 minutes early or 5 minutes late, I don't think that translates to everybody anymore. So this is where we're at. When is it okay to pass a stop school bus in Emerald Isle? Anybody? This is audience. All right, good. We got that answer right. Nowhere, right? So don't pass. That's the gist of what we got here is don't pass. But you know, people out there, oh, I thought I could pass in the turning lane, or I thought I could do this. I had one person, the most honest person I ever saw, and he still got the ticket because there's a zero tolerance for passing stop school buses. I don't know of any officer that doesn't ticket every time for this one, okay? But he said, well, I was running late to work, so I didn't have time to stop. So the most honest answer I've ever heard. Other people like, I didn't know I couldn't pass here or whatever. Alicia is honest, but here's your ticket anyways, you know. Well, again, of the few things that we can do to protect our kids, this is the one thing that they're gonna hold. So when can we pass? Well, on a 2-lane road, like we have on Emerald Drive, you can see no. When we have the turning lanes in Emerald Drive, you can still see no. 4 lanes separated like that. So if we have a double yellow line and 2 lanes, you're still having to stop. Then you have a 4-lane divided highway where you have that median in there, either a wall or a grass median. You think Highway 24 down in Jacksonville, that whole area, if the bus is on one side, you can pass on the other side. I see it happening on 24 in Carteret where it has that active median with the turn signals or the turning lanes, almost the whole length of the median. And I've seen the state police not stop people for passing on the other side. So I'm assuming that counts as a median and go out there. I usually slow down, go to the far right and creep forward and hope for the best out there. But essentially if it's a divided 4-lane highway or more with a median separation, that's when you can pass on the opposite side. So if you're on the same side as the bus, you still can't pass. When the bus is stopped at an intersection, everybody stops. So a 4-way stop, everybody stops. We don't know where the kid's gonna go. You know, the kid can go across the street. A vehicle's gonna try. I've seen very often what happens is that people try to make a right-hand turn behind it. It's like, well, I'm not passing the school bus, I'm going out there. No, just stop. The 30 seconds or a minute or so it takes for the kid to offload, for them to turn on the thing, it's certainly not too much time to ask for compliance and the safety of the kids. I like this slide here. This is the verbiage on the offense. What I point out a couple of things on this one is public vehicular area. That is legalese, fancy cop speak for parking lot. And it means a couple other things, but for our discussion here, parking lot. I had a problem when I was the school resource officer up in Havelock of people passing the special needs bus in the high school parking lot at breakneck speeds with cars in the parking lot first thing in the morning and then again at the end of the afternoon. I caught one lady red-handed doing it, and she held the ticket up there, and she was 70 years old, and it was the first moving violation she ever got in her life when we ran the background check and ran the driving record on her. And it was compliments of me because she passed a parked school bus with the stop sign out, unloading students. And I felt really bad about that one, but she still had to hold a ticket, and I went to court, and it was an interesting court day for that. So I think she paid the fine and court costs, and it got dismissed after that because 70 years old, never had a traffic violation until Officer Beer decided to be mean and hand her passing a parked school bus. How I corrected the problem in Havelock was much like our system here, where we have people following we have patrol officers following the buses. Every morning, I timed my arrival at the school at the same time as the special needs bus, and I sat in the car far enough back that the people on the other side can see me, and the people coming in couldn't go around me until the bus unloaded and went there. I had a couple of people try to go past me, and I would turn on the blue lights, and that gave them time to rethink their decisions in life and save them from a ticket. Mandatory court appearance and a $500 fine. It's a class 1 misdemeanor, so you can go to jail for 4 months for this. Fantastic. And then how serious is all this? The most points you can get on a single violation on your license is 5. And look what the 2 things up there that get you 5 points. Then you look at the 4-pointers. And then what I got a kick out of is, which one is it? 3 points? Yeah. So you get 3 points for speeding in a school zone, but you'll get 5 points for passing that school bus. So how serious and how dangerous is that school bus unloading and offloading kids that's the highest level you're going to get compared to running speeding through a school zone when you have those signs up and the like.